Welcome to You Brew Kombucha. Today I'm going to share some flavoring ideas. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a fun one. We're going to kind of improvise with a few different flavor combinations. And my goal with this is basically to show you that you can mix and match different flavorings, different fruits and herbs to make kombucha that tastes really good. And one of the main questions that I get from a lot of homebrewers is, how do you decide how much of a certain flavoring you put into a bottle of kombucha? And a lot of the time, I'm not really able to give a straight answer because flavor preferences vary so greatly from person to person and even within an individual flavoring. So for example, orange juice that is freshly squeezed orange juice tastes way different from orange juice concentrate and different from orange juice that you buy from the store. So even within the same fruit, depending on how it's processed or depending on how it's handled, there is a huge variation in flavors that occurs depending on how that fruit is processed. And so I'm basically just going to go through this process of mixing and matching a bunch of different flavorings to show you how I like to play around with my different flavorings. And just to show you that it doesn't really need to be super precise. A lot of it is just based on how it tastes. If it tastes good to you, that's really the only measure for whether or not you made successful kombucha. So with that, we're just gonna go ahead and get started. I have here a 1 gallon batch of kombucha that has been fermenting for about a week. And if you want my recipe on first fermentation, I will put a link down in the description box below for that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take the pellicle out of this brew. So because it's winter where I live, my scobies or my pellicles have been growing super, super thin. You can see it's really thin and translucent. So this isn't really worth saving, but I am just gonna kind of take it and put it aside so that it's out of the way of our kombucha brew. This was the original mother pellicle, mother SCOBY. Just put this aside. Now, as a quick reminder, if you're planning on brewing another batch of kombucha, you basically have to reserve about 2 cups of this unflavored kombucha tea to use as a starter for your next batch of kombucha. But I'm actually just gonna go ahead and flavor this entire batch, so I'm not gonna put any of that aside. But what I am going to do is just to make sure that I'm straining out any yeast particles or kind of stringy yeasty bits that might have accumulated over the course of the fermentation process. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my strainer and just pour my unflavored kombucha tea through. So here we have some unflavored kombucha tea that we're just gonna go ahead and start playing around with. So when I'm usually bottling a batch of kombucha, I don't usually have this many different types of flavorings that I'm playing around with. This is more so just to kind of give you a starting point, give you some inspiration for different flavorings that you might wanna try. But if you wanna see how I actually bottle a gallon of kombucha, I will put a link in the description box below so that you can see a little bit more of an efficient process of bottling kombucha. But again, we're just playing around and we're kind of improvising here. So that is the reason why we're kind of doing it bottle by bottle. So I'm just gonna use this pitcher as kind of my base pitcher. Each of these bottles holds approximately 8 ounces, 8 fluid ounces of liquid. So I'm just gonna put some kombucha tea into this vessel. And we're just gonna start playing around with different flavoring options. So here I have some blood orange juice. I've got some lime juice. We have tangerine juice. We have some ginger juice, some freshly juiced apples, freshly juiced lemon, freshly juiced pineapple, some pureed raspberries, and a store-bought bottle of pomegranate juice. And if you're curious about how I prepare my fruit flavorings, whether they're fresh fruit, concentrate, frozen fruit, if you're curious about how I prepare all of these flavorings, I have another video dedicated to that, so I will link that down in the description box below. So definitely check that out if you're curious. So I think for this first brew, one of my favorite all-time flavors is Tangerine Rosemary. So this is just plain kombucha tea. This is some tangerine juice that I juiced a little bit earlier. I'm gonna just add a bit of it to the mix. And then stir it up and give it a taste. Needs a little bit more tangerine flavor. And this is generally how I decide how much of a particular flavor to add to my kombucha, is purely by taste. Again, because even within the same fruit, its flavoring will vary depending on the season. Are you buying it when it's in season or out of season? That also greatly affects the sweetness levels and the flavor profile of the fruit. That's better. So that is a lot more tangerine-y. So I'm gonna grab just a stem of fresh rosemary. This has been rinsed. And what I like to do is just kind of bruise it up a little bit to release those essential oils that reside within the herb. And I just take a whole sprig of it and put it right in the bottle. Woo. I actually poured in a little bit less than 8 ounces, so I'm actually just gonna top it off with a little bit more tangerine juice here, just to fill it up all the way to the top. And then I'm just gonna poke the remaining rosemary that's above the liquid level down below the liquid. And there we've got our Tangerine Rosemary kombucha. Now let's do this is just fresh raspberries that were pureed in a blender with a little bit of unflavored kombucha to make it a little bit liquidy. Let's do a raspberry ginger lemon. I really love this flavor, and if any of you are fans of the GT Trilogy flavor, that is basically raspberry ginger lemon. So I'm gonna add some raspberry puree, some ginger juice, and just a little hit of lemon juice. And give that a stir. Ooh, that's really good. Nice and tart. Raspberry ginger lemon. What next? What haven't I used yet? I haven't used this pineapple juice, and similar to the apple juice, there's a little bit of foam at the top, so I'm just gonna scoop that away and discard it. I love pineapple as a kombucha flavoring because it just brings such nice tropical brightness and such a nice, lovely, sweet flavor. So I'm going to start with my kombucha. I'm gonna add some pineapple. You know, I haven't ever tried pineapple and blood orange together, so let's give that a shot. Lovely color. That's really nice. The sweetness and the tropical flavor of the pineapple with kind of that kind of refined citrus juice that the blood orange gives. It's a really fascinating flavor. I've never tried that flavor combo before, so I'm excited about it. And I also actually find that pineapple juice, when I use fresh pineapple juice to flavor kombucha, it results in very, very well carbonated kombucha. So watch out for this one. It's definitely one of those carbonation, fermentation producing fruits. I'm gonna actually go ahead and just give this a stir, just to make sure that any yeast that settles down at the bottom of the brew is kicked up. Now let's try some pomegranate. So I love just using store-bought pomegranate juice as a kombucha flavor. It's a lot easier than juicing pomegranates yourself. One of my favorite flavor combinations is actually passionfruit pomegranate. I don't have any passion fruit on the table here today because I actually dedicated a whole other video just to using passion fruit. Passion fruit is one of my favorite kombucha flavors. Actually, it is the favorite kombucha flavor of mine. And I actually haven't found a single fruit that doesn't pair really well with passion fruit. So any of these flavor combinations, if you want to just add a hit of passion fruit in there, I am pretty sure it will taste fantastic. But one of my all-time favorite flavor combos is passion fruit and pomegranate. So definitely take a look at my passion fruit video if you're curious about how I work with passion fruit and my recommendations for flavoring with it in kombucha. And then if you ever get your hands on some frozen passion fruit pulp or fresh passion fruit, definitely give it a try with pomegranate or any of these other flavors, because it's really fantastic. So let's do pomegranate, and what would go? Ooh, let's do lime. Let's do pomegranate lime. So this is freshly juiced lime juice, just a little bit of it. A little bit goes a long way. You don't want to make it too tart. Ooh, that's really nice. Now let's try tangerine, ginger, lemongrass, maybe? Let's give that a shot. There's the tangerine juice. Add some ginger juice. And we'll chop up a bit of this lemongrass here. Add that to the bottle. Let's give it a mix. That's gonna be a good one. Now let's do a pineapple rosemary lemon. How about that? Just bruise the rosemary a bit. Some pineapple. Let's stir this. Pineapple and just a little bit of lemon. A little bit goes a long way. Ooh, yes. Really yummy. I'm so excited to try all of these flavors out. And for our next one, why don't we do apple raspberry? That sounds fun. Kombucha. Oops, accidentally added a little too much. So we're gonna add some apple juice. And just a bit of raspberry. Stir it up. These make for such beautiful colors. That's really good. You know what? It's really good, but it could use a little bit of acidity, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of lemon. Lemon is one of those flavors where you can add it, just a little bit of it, to your kombucha, and you won't really necessarily notice that it's lemon, but if you're finding that your fruit is a little one note or bland, it's a great addition to just give it a little bit of acidity and extra punch. Much better. Made a huge difference, just that little bit of lemon. Now let's do, why don't we do blood orange lime? Let's do a blood orange lime one. just finish off the rest of this blood orange juice. A little bit of lime. That's really good. I think that would be really good with a sprig of rosemary. I really love the way citrus and rosemary pair well together. It's just such a nice, fresh, piney herb that works so well with the sweetness and acidity of a lot of different citruses. Have we done a tangerine pomegranate? I don't think so. Let's do the rest of this tangerine juice. A little bit of pomegranate. I have a feeling this is gonna need a little bit of acidity, so I'm gonna add just a tiny bit of lime just to punch it up. Ooh, that's really good. Got a few other bottles here. Let's do an apple pineapple. A little bit of pineapple juice, some apple. And let's do raspberry pineapple. Sounds good. Ooh, that's really good. I'm gonna add the last bit of a bit of lemongrass to this one. And as far as herbs go, I really enjoy rosemary in kombucha. I love lemongrass. I also love working with thyme. If you can find fresh thyme, that's fantastic in kombucha as well. I love pairing thyme and strawberries, thyme and blackberries. Thyme works really well with berries. So I've gone ahead and tightly capped and sealed all of these bottles. I've also put labels on top just so that I know what flavor is in each bottle. And I'm basically just gonna let these ferment at room temperature for a few days. Usually my brews tend to take between 4 days to 7 days to get to the perfect level of carbonation that I like. A lot of different factors will go into how long it takes for your kombucha to successfully carbonate. And that really just depends on the flavoring itself, the average room temperature in your home. Warmer temperatures generally speed up fermentation and cooler temperatures slow it down. So in the winter, you might find that it takes longer to achieve that perfect level of carbonation. And in warmer temperatures in the summer, you might find that it doesn't take nearly as long. So you might just need to play around with it and go through the trial and error process to see when your kind of average or perfect ideal of second fermentation time is. But if you want to find out more details about second fermentation specifically, I'll link that video down below so you can check that out. I really hope that this gave you some inspiration to try out different flavor combinations that maybe you didn't think about trying before. If you have any other questions about the kombucha brewing process, definitely check out all the other videos on my channel. And as always, you can find more details at youbrewkombucha.com. Happy brewing!